Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sim Experience South Africa. We're racing the MX5s at Donnington. It's going to be a very interesting race. We currently have the Division 2 drivers on track, and they are gearing up for their qualifying. So everyone is starting to make their way around. As you can see on the track map, most of the drivers are heading through that last hairpin of the track, and then we should start getting some times going. For those of you on the YouTube channel, good evening. Feel free to say hi, and I'll see if I can poke my nose in there where I can. And then for those of you driving tonight, the best of luck. We hope it goes very well. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting race. Donnington can be a very tricky circuit, especially with some of these turns, and we'll get some onboard footage going shortly. We're running the Grand Prix circuit, not the national one. I ran the national one in my Skip Barber days, and it is quite a lot of fun, quite challenging, and lots of opportunities to lose grip on the car. There's a lot of undulations on this track, and it does affect you a little bit, and also restricts passing opportunities, so watch out for some interesting and maybe desperate overtakes. And yeah, should be quite fun. I'm just still getting a few things up on my side, so I do apologize if I'm a little bit quiet at some times. Let me just also get the chat open and all of that. So we're currently looking at Willemstad, and we are yet to have any time set for the board, and you can see, as compared to his outlap, he is finding a fair bit of time. So on the YouTube channel, I see Peter Grobler saying lekker gooi milies. Gerrit Snyman also very excited about the racing. Renee is saying that it's going to be a nice Sunday drive. I just came stuck in traffic from people watching snow, so I hope this is a bit faster than my Sunday drive was, but I do believe that the guys are a bit quicker than that. I see some people wishing for rain. I see Cleopas. I'm really not. I'm going to have to learn to pronounce your name, but welcome back. We've seen you quite a few times with the MX5 races. Welcome, Robert Franco, saying good luck. Welcome, James Leach, saying go team Leach Racing. Didn't know you had someone in a team member in the race at the moment, but we will keep an eye out for them. And then, of course, it's the SRAC supporters that are ever present. But it's nice to see another group of people there. So good luck for the SRAC people. Good luck for Team Leach Racing. And it's going to be exciting. So why don't we give you some onboards? On my side, I do see some times on the board. We're still waiting for the timing tower to update as per usual. So actually, before that happens, let's just jump to the standings. I've completely lost track of what I want to do. So, looking at our standings, we've got Dennis Mitchell, Melvin Goos, Peter Grobler, Dylan Versaghi, Mornay Deploy, James Crook, Tommy Leary Moss, Peter Galdenhuys, Craig Wesley, Ian Upton, Herman Nieuwoud, and Michael Rust. Those are all Div 1 drivers. Then Donnie van Rooyen, Steven Sparks, Timo Smit, James Leach Jr., Alistair Barnard, Richard van Heerden, Sean Johnson, Rian van der Westhuizen, 20th, Andre Hildebrand, Marius van Wyk, Sean Olivier. So we're now moving into the Div 2 range. Dani Stander, Keen Goos, of course, a very talented driver in this Division 2, one to watch out for, and want to challenge him, Gijsbert Attinagel, then Willem Steyn, Tian Mare, Sean Weber, Hilke Wieringa, our sponsor, or our representative for our sponsor, Alwin. Again, thank you very much for your support. And then Dennis Knutse, Basil van Rijn, Davy Goos, Robert Franco, Dean van Wyk, Stuart Mack, And I have one more page for you. Matt Williams, James Leach. And James Leach again. I don't know how you've cloned yourself, James. But if you could get double the racing done, well done to you. Then Nico Smith and Eric Leitwanger and Ross Heeman. In terms of our weather, so it is a slightly warm 25 degrees Celsius in the air, 35 degrees Celsius for the track. So it's going to be conducive to some good racing. The tires are going to stick to the surface quite nicely. And the air is just about the temperature that you want it for the engines to run nice and efficiently. So, on top of the leaderboards for qualifying, we have Sean Willefear sitting proud with a 147.953, so first into the 147s. Then Sean Johnson, Renier Leach. So that's the Leach Racing. I would assume there's quite a few of you here. Gijsbert Attinagel, 4th position. Matt Williams, 5th. Willem Steyn, 6th. Gabi Goos, 7th. Marius van Wyk, 8th. And Hilke Weringa, position 9. We do have a few other drivers in the server at the moment that still need to set valid times. So let's see if we can find a few of them. So currently in the middle of the lap, I think Keen is still busy with his outlap. So we will wait for him to go around a little bit. And why don't we have a look here? So Weringa is sitting with a good positive on his delta at the moment, so a nice improvement. Going down the backstretch of the circuit. This is the trickier part. There's a little bit of a chicane going, and then you've got that ugly hairpin sticking out at the bottom of the circuit. So that is the Melbourne hairpin that he's charging towards. Quite a few cars on track here. And unfortunately that battle with the cars on track did cost Hilke some time. So he's going to try and claw it back. Now through Goddard's and onto the Wheatcroft straight. So let's see how much speed can he carry through here. So finding some time on entry, and he's going to find even more on exit. So that's 6/10 down on his delta, and he will charge onwards. Now let's see. I'm trying to find him now. I unfortunately lost him, so we will move on towards someone else. Gabi Goos just finishing up with a lap in 9th position, and Renier Leach now in 4th. So Gijsbert Attinagel moving up 1 position. So let's see if Atti does have an answer for it. So going through Redgate, now up towards Hollywood. So this is the part of the track that I was talking about that's very tricky. It's so easy to touch this curve and step yourself out. So through the Carreno curves into the old hairpin, and this is so difficult to get done correctly. Try to carry as much momentum, and unfortunately the rear steps out on the dirt, and that is going to be it. Sean Willefear out in front. Now 2 drivers in the 147s, and he's still working on his delta. Keen Goos jumping into 5th position with a 148.524, but he is massively up on his delta, 2nd improvement. So let's stick with him through this last part of the circuit. So he's heading towards Goddard's and the Wheatcroft straight, and trying to carry that momentum through. Lots of sliding of the rear. Is he going to be able to catch it? He does, and he barely scrapes by. So unfortunately the line is too far away, so he is going to stay in 5th and reset for a better lap. Matt Williams with some positive time on his delta, almost a second's worth of improvement. Unfortunately not going to improve his position, but I do think there might be some time to be found. He's already 2/10 down in the first portion of the circuit. Does seem to struggle carrying that speed through Hollywood. Now into the crater curves. And this is where that curb can really upset the balance of the car. Into the old hairpin. And he doesn't take as wide an entry as he could. And you can immediately see him losing some time there. That curb there, right on the Starkey's Bridge, you want to cut that. Now Swartz curve and McLean's. Nice wide exit there, and you can immediately see him gaining back the time. Now into Coppice. Good use of the apex. Unfortunately, not enough track on exit, and that is going to be it for his quali run at the moment. So qualifying has ended while we were talking. So sorry about that. So we are going to sit with Sean Willefeer, Sean Johnson, Atti Nagel, Renier Leach, Keen Gous, Dani Stander, Matt Williams, Willem Stein, Gavi Gous, Marius van Wyk, and Hilke Wieringa. I'm going to take you to a quick ad break while we wait for all of the engineers to get the cars ready, and then we will be back shortly. Welcome back, everyone. So we are on the grid and ready to get going. Some of the drivers starting to warm up the engines a little bit in preparation for the start. It is going to be quite difficult to get these cars to perform as well as they can. So it's going to be a big challenge for these drivers, and it's going to be a lot of fun for us to watch. So lights out, and 6 lights quite quick to get going, and then we are off. So very good start there for Sean Johnson. Sorry, not Sean Johnson, Sean Willefeer, as he starts driving off. But there in the background, we do have a few drivers getting a good start as well. little bit of contact there between, I think that's Keen and Ati, as they charge on ahead. Sean Olivier leading the pack down towards the Craner curves, and then through the old hairpin, getting through nice and cleanly. And further back, Renier Leach getting a massive exit out of the hairpin and is now chasing down Keen Goos. So into the Stockley Bridge, Swartz curve, and then McLean's they go, as Leach is chasing down Keen Goos, going up on the inside for Koppers. He is going to have the line, and that is going to be the move done and dusted. So that's going to leave Keen Goos to attack, and you can see him a little bit shaken by that, but he will recover and continue from there. A little bit of swapping going on towards the back of the pack. Matt Williams now opening up the gap between himself and Stander behind him as he chases on forwards. Out in front, Sean Olivier and Sean Johnson still duking it out, with Leach right on their heels. So through Goddard's and onto the Wheatcroft straight we go. You can see the drivers start piling through. We do have a bit of a gap opening up towards the middle of the pack, and I do think it might be the challenge of the circuit. So Olivier comfortably leading as we go on through. Donnie Stander starting to pressure Matt Williams in front of him as they go through Redgate up towards Hollywood. The gaps between these cars, for considering the fact that we've only had one lap of racing already, these 1 second gaps are opening up are quite large. But you can see Donnie Stander already improving on his lap time massively. Matt Williams in front of him spinning off, and that looks like an equipment failure. So that's very unfortunate for him. Renier Leach catching up with Sean Johnson in front of him, but he's also being chased by Keen Goos, and that turn right there, Koppers is not Keen's friend tonight. 0.5 seconds between Leach and Johnson. They are chasing one another down through the Fogarty S's. Oh my. That can sound very bad. Anyway, and into the Melbourne hairpin. Already 8 seconds that Leach has found there. Trying to carry a bit of momentum towards the inside of Sean Johnson. Not going to be able to do that, not safely. And onto the Wheatcroft straight they go. And you can lose so much time in this single corner. The 147 for Sean Olivier, so he is just gunning it out in front there. As the rest of the pack starts chasing him down. You can see that Goos has a huge amount of pace in hand. He's already closed the 2 second gap that was between himself and Leach after that accident in Koppers. Well, not the accident, but the off track at Koppers. But he does seem to be pushing very hard. He might want to rein it back a little bit and just get more consistent times, and he'll be able to keep up with the front of the pack. Leach now very aware of Goos behind him. I think his focus might be wavering a little bit. And that's a very clean line there through Koppers. And this time Goos has gotten the better of the corner. So now into the Fogarty S's. And this is also very tricky with these low powered cars. You want to scrub as little speed as possible, but you also want to get through the corner quite cleanly. So this is a massive battle here for second and third. And again, Johnson struggles yeah, Johnson struggles on the outside there. And struggles to keep the momentum going. So gap closing down, or was a closing down between Leach and Johnson. And Goes with a massive exit out of Goddard's. Now they are drafting down towards Redgate. It's also a very interesting corner. You can almost enter the pit lane as you're entering your braking zone. But you do need to be careful if cars are coming out of those pit lanes, or out of that pit lane. Post now with a very, very small gap between himself and Leach. And unfortunately, we've lost one of the drivers as the rest of the pack gets promoted upwards. A little bit of a shake there from Johnson. Keener's going to get held up. He's going to try and go on the inside. Leach is going to be able to chase onwards. And now we've got Goos and Johnson sitting behind him. So that was a bit of a scary moment there for Johnson, with two cars going to either side of him as he was slowed down through the Old Hairpin and Stockley's Bridge. Goos now looking at the back of Leach through the Fargo TXS's, and he is losing a little bit of time to him, but Johnson gaining from behind. You can see that Johnson trying to move towards the inside, and he is going to be able to get the move done. Keane going for the switchback, and he is going to reclaim the position. So some nice racing here from these gentlemen on screen. Now into Goddard's. Are they going to be able to keep the momentum going? Unfortunately, Goos loses the rear of the car. And that's probably one of the worst cases of commentator's curse that I've seen right there. Quickly catching up with the YouTube chat, and there is a lot, so unfortunately I'm not going to be able to see everything. But it's nice to see the support for the drivers. Leach now catching up with Willefear. Willefear running very slow into the Old Hairpin. And you can see Leach is getting the better exit. And I think it might be Willefear running slower at the moment. So Willefear under massive amounts of pressure. Leach trying to move up towards the inside for Coppice, and this is going to be quite tricky for both of them as they go too wide into Coppice. And Leach going way on the inside to avoid getting turned into. As Olivier speeds on ahead. Back further in the pack, Renfer and Westhuizen. Oh, come on, keep it together. And unfortunately that slip has lost him time, but he was chasing down Willem Steyn just before we jumped to him. Also kind of sneaking in here at the rear, but doing a superb job at it. Now into the Fogarty S's. And you can hear the Steyn's car in front of him as we see them coming into view now. Into the Melbourne Hairpin and up towards Goddard's. And you can see Van Westhuizen kind of losing a bit of time. I think he might be struggling with the hairpins at the moment. Renier Leach once again catching up with Olivier. And again, it's the old hairpin that's brought them together. So let's keep an eye. Leach looking for any opportunity. Is he going to try and go towards the outside of McLean's? Not going to find it. Now he's going to try and carry that momentum through. See if he can get a line of attack for Coppice. Is not going to find it. And you see Olivier just making sure he's making his car as wide as possible. Leach looking towards the outside. They are side by side going through the Stockley Straight. And that's going to be Leach assuming the position into the Volvo TS's. Now on the inside, Olivier almost getting turned into, keeping his nose out of trouble, but nearly getting in trouble. Now, Sean Olivier looking towards the inside for Melbourne Hapen. That's a very aggressive line through there, and unfortunately he's going to lose out towards Leach in terms of momentum. Now, Leach on the outside, Olivier on the inside. Olivier taking a very restricted line. That's going to hurt him massively down the Woodcroft straight. So Leach is going to try and draft behind him, get that difference in time going, and then it's going to be Redgate. Although he does seem to be sticking behind. He's not chosen his plan of attack. Behind them, Corsa has caught up with Johnson. So now, once again, a four-way battle here at the front of the pack. Leach is still chasing down Olivier, so he knows he is a little bit faster through that mid or late section of the track. Oh, we've got contact. Unfortunately, that's going to be Olivier spinning out. Leach charging on ahead. I do not think that was anyone's fault. That seemed like a racing incident from my standpoint. And that's going to send Johnson and Goos out ahead as well. So now Leach is going to be fighting for this lead as hard as he possibly can. So Johnson behind him. Still not massively up on his delta, but he's keeping up with Leach. And then Keane is the one finding time here. As you can see, he's improving on his delta as they go towards the back end of the circuit. So he's keeping an eye on these two gentlemen in front of him. He's trying to see where are the kinks in their armor, where are they slower, where are they faster, and then waiting to strike. Unfortunately running very deep, but I think he might be squaring off the corner a little bit, and you can see he's already improving on his exit speed. So some interesting adapted driving lines on the inside for Goos. That is very aggressively done, but that has gotten the job done, and unfortunately Johnson is not going to have an answer for that. So I think that might have caught Johnson off guard a little bit. But now Goos has Johnson in his draft. And he's going to have to defend for this first portion of the lap. Through Redgate into Hollywood. And Goos is focusing a little bit too much on his mirrors. Up on the inside we've got Johnson, and now setting up for the old hairpin. It's going to be very tricky going too wide through there. And I think Johnson has realized that, fallen back behind Keane. Behind Goos. That is a very, very wide line out of the old hairpin for Johnson. So Leach is benefiting massively from this battle behind him. So he's starting to open up that gap between himself and Goos. As Johnson wants that position back. Now into Coppice, and this has been a little bit of an Achilles heel for Goos. He's just sliding out that rear. I think he's found his groove. And on towards the Pogoti S's. And that's an interesting way to load your tires. Kind of weaving across the circuit, but that, I don't know whether that was defensively. Johnson carrying massive amounts of speed. They are side by side as they head towards the Melbourne hairpin. And we've got Johnson on the inside, Goos on the outside. They're going to have to be really careful not to turn into one another. Johnson with a very restricted line is unfortunately not able to carry that momentum up towards Goddard's. So he's going to have to fall in behind Goos and look for a different angle of attack. Leach still running out ahead, but I think Goos has been closing the gap a little bit. Behind we also have Steyn here with Virga as they run three through Coppice. I think we might have just got on the tail end of that battle. Van Resthuizen and Virga now battling it out into the Volvo TS's. Van Resthuizen just keeping ahead of Virga a little bit there. So charge on ahead now into the Melbourne hairpin. Heavy on the braking. You can see the driver struggling to get those cars turned around. It's always the difficulty with the hairpin, especially if you're only relying on the mechanical grip of the tires. That's what makes these cars so special. It's a very forgiving car to drive, but you can extract so much potential out of the car if you know how to. So Keane is now catching up with Leach. You can see that massive improvement on his Delta near the back end of the circuit. He's lost some time through the Fargo TS's. Now into the Melbourne hairpin. Leach doing everything they can to keep ahead. 4 minutes left to go, and then we've got an additional lap of running. So now through Goddard's. Keane getting a very, very good exit there. And he is very close to drafting range in regards to Leach. So I can imagine Leach sweating a little bit. There you can see Ghost using the pit entry for that turn in, and he's been able to carry so much speed with that wider line. And he's probably picked up quite a few tricks from his dad in regards to that. Though he does seem to be changing up some of his lines as he's driving on the circuit. So Ghost now getting very close to Leach. A little bit of a slide there in the rear wheels, and that's going to cost a lot of time as they go up the hill. Now through McLean's. It's also a very tricky corner to get right. Ghost using as much of the exit as he dares. You really need to be careful with your rear wheel on that gravel on the outside. You need to be careful that you don't lose control of your car. A little bit of a tap on the brakes from Leach there in the middle of the straight. I think that might have been a bit of a panic tap. And into the Fargo TSS now. Leach is under immense amounts of pressure. Yeah, as he's got Ghost right behind him. Up towards the Melbourne hairpin, and Ghost just looking on the outside for opportunity. I think he's squaring off the corner, trying to carry momentum through, but he's getting stuck behind Leach there. And now taking the inside line. Ghost on the inside for Goddard's. He's going to restrict his line quite a lot. Unfortunately, Leach getting caught up behind him as well, so both of them losing a little bit of time. And that's done enough to keep Leach behind Ghost, but Leach is looking at an opportunity. He wants to carry as much speed through the outside of a red gate. You can see Ghost struggling to carry the speed through, and that's opened the door for Leach. So really good racing between these two gentlemen right here. Now through the crater curves and on towards the old hairpin. Ghost looking for any opportunity. Nice and early turn in for the old hairpin. Trying to carry that momentum up the hill. Now in preparation for McLean's. On the inside we've got Ghost. He's not going to be able to get that braking zone done. Or is he? As he attacks the inside. Unfortunately not able to pull ahead right now. They're going to go side by side into Coppice. We'll see how Ghost is on the brakes. So close to the rear panel of Leach there. Unfortunately, Ghost has had to bail out of that attack. Getting very hairy all of a sudden for James. Sorry, not James, but Renee Leach. Too many of you right here, but always a good thing. So let's see, where is Ghost finding his time in regards to Leach here? So we spoke about him squaring off the hairpin here, trying to get that accelerator pedal down as quick as possible, as he manages some wheel spin heading out of the corner, and now into Goddard's. They've lost a huge amount of time in regards to the battle they've been having right now. Now I think Ghost might be a little bit more careful in regards to his attacks. Leach putting a massive gap ahead now. Ghost not really getting the car turned into the apex, so a little bit distracted by Leach in front of him. but doing very well in this final stages of the race. So we're just waiting for the leader to cross the start-finish line, and they will have another lap of racing after that. Ooh, Goos getting that back into the car, nice and squirrely, up the hill, up towards McLean's, as he tries to find that time on Leach. It does seem like he is very strong coming out of McLean's. Now through Coppice. Almost a double apex corner if you take it with enough speed. And now the Forgotti S's. And this is also extremely tricky in the car. You need to be very careful on entry and make sure you don't step that wheel into the gravel and lose control. Now the Melbourne hairpin, which has proven a stronger point for Goos. Although I do think that exit is not going to help him that much. So Leach in a bit of a safer position than he was earlier. But he has to keep up the racing standards that he's been having up until this point. So after this race we do have a reversed grid, which is going to be a very interesting challenge for all of the drivers involved. So Leach now up on his Delta as well. He's really getting that foot down with the lighter car at the end stages of the race. The tyre's not really able to wear in the few laps of racing we have had. But they still need to be careful with those tires. Leach just absolutely flying at this stage of the race. He knows exactly who's behind him and exactly what he needs to do to keep him there. It's now into Coppice. Very, very tricky corner to carry that speed through. And he's able to do exactly that. Losing a little bit of speed down the straight, but improving by almost half a second here at the final stages of the race. Now up towards the Melbourne hairpin. And this is where the tricky bit starts. You can't afford to make any kind of mistake here. You can see him preemptively running a little bit defensive on the inside, just placing his car so that there's no shenanigans in the braking zone. And our last corner, this is going to be essential for him. And he gets through nice and cleanly, so that looks like Leach for the win, with Goos very close behind him. So very close 1-2 pairing right there. Sean Johnson coming flying through the last part of the circuit. And then Sean Willoughby just behind him. Unfortunately down in 4th position with that little incident earlier in the race. Atinagel 5th. And Matt Williams still coming through the last portion of the circuit. So you can see a little bit of damage to his car. He's been struggling with the circuit, but it's still a comfortable 6th position for him. And that's going to place him right in the middle for the reverse grid in the next race. So I just need to quickly make a note of this. So finishing up when the rest is coming across the line, and then staying there in the background. But Mustaine coming home with an 8th position. Donnie Stunder there in the background, comfortable 9th. Harvey Goos unfortunately just having a bit of a moment there on the Gollard's hairpin, and that's going to give Van Beek a little bit of an opportunity to squeeze through. And then Bernga, unfortunately with some technical difficulties, making his last lap around the circuit. As we also wait for Ghost to cross the line. So up towards McLean's and just trying to carry that speed through nice and comfortably. Keeping nice and tight to the apex. Just using as much exit that is needed. Now Coppice nice and cleanly through there. Drifting out wide, just carrying that speed. And now down the Starkley straight. Approaching the Forgo TS's. Ghost is unfortunately in the pits. I think he has some severe damage to his car. Bernga coming through the Forgo TS's up towards the Melbourne hairpin, and the session is going to end. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've had quite the exciting race 1, and we are set up for race number 2. So on the grid in the front row, we've got Maurice van Wyk and Willem Steyn. Although I think my grid might be a little bit jumbled at the moment. So reverse grid, we've got the fast guys stuck at the back, and it's going to make for some interesting racing here on the first lap. So 6 lights out. And we are ready to get going. And we get over the line. You can see an incredible start there for Sean Willoughby, as he's right in the middle of the action there. So the rest of the drivers getting through cleanly. A little bit of a shove there on Sean Willoughby, as Maurice van Wyk and Donnie Stander lead us into the first few corners. Now through Hollywood with the black close together. As they start spreading out a little bit, Van Wyk carrying some good speed and getting a nice big gap open. Now the old hairpin, some close racing between the drivers behind him. So Stander, Steyn and Williams all bunched together, all wide, and that's going to be a massive crash in the background there. A whole bunch of drivers involved there. Sean Willoughby, Matt Williams, they are going to fall back in the standings. Now out in front, Maurice van Wyk and Donnie Stander neck and neck for Coppice, and Stander is going to stick his neck on the inside on Coppice and get that drive through. That's a step up in the position for him, but the trouble is not over for Wyk. Steyn also overtaking him on the straight, so a bit of a loss of speed as he was defending through that corner, and that's cost him. Further behind, Jesper Artidal, Virga and Willefeer all very close together still, but for now, Van Beek is trying to come back at Steen here. Essegaze is taking it on the inside. And he opts for the outside line. He's going to try and go for that switchback on Steen. Unfortunately, gets held behind him on the exit. But less than a second separating the front three cars. So some good racing to be had here. Almost contact there between Steen and Stander. And up the inside goes Van Beek. Now it's a drag race up towards Redgate. You can see one of them running very close to the inside. Van Beek trying to regain the draft from Steen. Unfortunately not able to pull ahead. Now up towards Hollywood is going to try and find some momentum somewhere. Behind him, Leach has moved up into the position behind him, so now he's also going to be thinking about defense at some point in time. Leach and Goos and Johnson all running very close together behind them. You can see René Leach, Harvey Goos and Sean Johnson all in a battle here for position. Johnson looking on the inside of McLean, and he's going to get that overtake done and dusted. Leach now catching up with Van Beek, looking on the inside of Koppers, and he's going to get the move done. Van Beek not wanting to let go yet as he tries to get that switch back for the straight, try and see if he can carry speed, and they are neck and neck as they go down the straight. Van Beek very close to Leach as they go through the 4-go TSs up towards Melbourne Hairpin. Sean Willoughby also now coming into the mix right behind Van Beek. Van Beek running defensive on the inside, and they are going to stay side by side very close together. Now in through Goddard's, Sean does have the inside line. He's going to be very late on the brakes and just park it on the apex. Unfortunately that's caught Van Beek off guard there, but I think Willoughby does have the position. They do have Johnson to deal with now. You can see him there running on the far right hand side of the circuit. Van Beek falling in behind him, and Willoughby maintaining his position. Leach looking at the backside of Willem Steen as they go through the cranial curves and up towards the old hairpin. This is going to be very tricky for Leach to get done right. Steen trying to make that car as wide as possible, but he's not going to have the speed up the hill, and that's really killed his defensive efforts. And now into McLean's with Leach leading, and I think that is going to be it for the overtake. Now Steen's just going to try and tuck behind and keep up to get back to Stander at the front of the grid. Some nice clean calculated racing, and sometimes you just need that faster exit up the hill underneath Starkley's bridge. Van Beek now in a battle with Atti as he's looking behind him in the 4-go TSs. Unfortunately stepped to a wheel on the grass. That's going to slow him down way too much, and he's going to have to recollect himself and go on from there. Leach now catching up with Thunder in front of him, and Steen has managed to keep up. So we've got a train of 3 cars coming towards the end of the circuit, very close together. Sean Willoughby also in the background, very keen to get in on the action with these 3 guys out in front. Down the Wheatcroft straight they go, and you can see just how close Leach is to Stander there. Almost a second fast, more than a second faster in his previous lap. A little bit of a flash there from Leach just to say, listen, I'm here, just keep that in mind. Bit of oversteer there from Stander, and that's going to cost him a bunch of time. Through the crater curves they go, up towards the old hairpin. And now Leach just needs another exit like he had previously had to get back out in front. So Stander able to maintain the speed up the hill, and that's not going to count in favor of Leach. Now into McLean's. The right-hander proving quite tricky thus far. You can see Leach losing some time on entry, but he has gained it on exit. Olivier battling it out with Willem Steyn in front of him. Looking on the inside of Koppers. And he's going to have to fall back in the draft if he wants to keep up. So now setting himself up for the inside of the Pogatti S's. Is he going to be able to make it side by side? So late on the brakes and he shoots past Steyn. And that's going to be the move done. Leach now under pressure. He's got Olivier charging from behind. He's got Stander keeping him honest up in front. And there in the background, you can see Johnson and Steyn also swapping positions. As Johnson is also making his way to the party out in front. Leach now looking at any possibility. Do you think he might have hurt his speed there by just putting a nose out there? Now drafting behind Stander or not. He's going to set himself up for the outside of Redgate. That's going to force Stander into a very defensive line. And we'll see how that helps Leach on the exit. Unfortunately, he's not very confident with his exit, and that's not going to count in his favor. I think that might have been Johnson going out onto the grass. So Olivier now on the heels of Leach, looking through the old hairpin. I think Leach might be getting a little bit distracted here. Very slow speed up the hill from Stander. As they go through the Swartz curve. And now into McLean's. Leach very preoccupied with the car behind him. A little bit of oversteer from Olivier. And there out and back. I think that might have been Johnson going out very wide. Taking an extremely adventurous line. Speaking of adventurous lines, Olivier completely cutting the corner. The stewards will not look onto that lightly. But it has not gained him a position, so I think he might have been trying to keep control of his car. Leach now chasing down Stander. Up towards the Melbourne hairpin. Gijsbergen, Attinagel and Steyn also swapping positions. With Leach just hunting down Stander. Stander doing an extremely good job of keeping ahead, just keeping it consistent under the pressure. Leach showing the nose, looking for opportunity. Olivier trying to send it up on the inside. They're going to make contact, but Olivier is going to charge on ahead. A little bit of rubbing his racing, but that has been all good and dandy. No harm, no foul. And Olivier has just snuck one on Leach. Right there in the Goddard's hairpin. Stander now under pressure from Olivier. And unfortunately, the pressure has gotten to him. He's completely spun out across the circuit. Hopefully it doesn't collect anyone else. And that's going to promote a whole bunch of drivers. Whew, I need to take a little bit of a break after that. But looking at the YouTube chat, I see Cleopas stepping away and saying, what did I miss? Well, there has been quite a lot happening here. Speaking of a lot, Leach having contact with Olivier. Oh no, that is a sad sight to see. Through the old hairpin, I think. A whole bunch of drivers just stepping out there. Keen, Goos and Atti set to have a battle in a few laps time. Unfortunately, I do think that Johnson is, or I think it's Johnson, is not going to be very happy with how Olivier got past him there. We'll leave that one to the stewards and we will continue onwards. Van Beek and Van der Westhuizen looking at who can stay ahead of who here. A very defensive line there from Van der Westhuizen, and then resumes the normal racing line. Van Beek struggling to get the power down as they exit the hairpin. Unfortunately, Van Beek losing it there will leave him to it. Keen still a bit of a way behind Ati Nagel. Ati has dealt with Goos before, and he knows that Goos has a few tricks up his sleeve, so he's going to be defending for all that is worth. You can see he's trying to slow Goos down just a little bit so that he doesn't get that exit that he needs. So now through the short curve and up to McLean's. And Gijsbert still running very defensively. It's going to lose them a little bit of time, but this is pole position. So Goos trying to look at any opportunity to get past, and Gijsbert just getting the elbows out and keeping that car as wide as possible. He's not weaving, he's not doing anything reckless. He's just making sure that he slows down in the right spots and that he's keeping that car parked on the apex, just making sure that Goos cannot really get any momentum. Goos on the inside, late on the brakes, and that's going to get the move done. So a little bit of a sneaky one there. I don't think Ati really had a chance to defend that as well. Johnson and Willoughby also swapping positions out in front. Willoughby with the momentum on the inside, and they are going to be going side by side to Goddard's. So Willoughby on the outside, Johnson with the very aggressive inside line. He's going to restrict himself a little bit. Needs to be careful that he doesn't lose all of this momentum. Willoughby now with a huge exit as they're side by side again. Sean Johnson on the outside, Willoughby on the inside. Into Redgate they go. And that's going to be a very wide line for Willoughby, but he's going to keep the momentum going, and Johnson has to slot in behind. Through the corner curves. And now setting up for the old hairpin. This is going to be crucial. Is Willoughby going to be able to pull that lead on Johnson, or is Johnson going to catch up? So it does seem like Willoughby has bogged down a little bit, and that's given Johnson an opportunity to look for some angles of attack. Into McLean as they go. He's taking a very early turn in, and he's snuck by Willoughby. So Willoughby, unfortunately, with a bunch of oversteer, also now under pressure from Keen Goos. He's just sneaking out ahead, and Willoughby on the back foot, having to fight back. Keen just using that opportunity, using that slowdown from the battle to get on ahead. Now Gijsbert Atinagel also looking at joining the party. He still has a bit of a way to go, but he's getting quite close. Now Keen Goos and Sean Johnson setting up for a battle here. Keen once again squaring off that hairpin, trying to get the better exit, but he's going to have to contend with Johnson on the exit. Now side by side for Goddard's, and Goos on the inside, and he's going to battle for that corner. They're going to stay side by side for the straight, and Johnson is going to have the bit of a pace advantage with that wider line that he took into the corner. 5 minutes left. Keen with the, once again, with that wide entry. I haven't seen other drivers utilizing the pit entry as much as he has. So that might be a bit of a hidden trick up his sleeve. Willoughby also right on the rear of Goos as they set up for the old hairpin. Willoughby trying to get that outside line, and he's all over the behind of Goos. Goos with a bit of a tank slapper, he's going to maintain control, but Willoughby is going to slip past as they head up towards McLean's. Gijsbert Atinagel not too far behind, so he's a looming threat if you make a mistake. And he might even get into the attacking zone. Unfortunately not, as he gets scared by the slipping and the sliding of the cars in front of him, and that sends him off track. Post now through Coppice. Behind Willoughby, catching a little bit of a draft. Willoughby on the inside line for the Fog RTS's. And he's going to be able to defend that just nice and cleanly. Bits early on the brakes just to catch Goos off guard, keep that momentum at bay. And Corsa is going to still try and come up the inside. They do make contact. And that's going to give Corsa some extra rotation. And he's back at it. A little bit of shoving between the two drivers. And this is getting very physical now. Corsa super late on the brakes. What if he is going to get the better exit? And that's going to be Corsa behind Willify right now. A huge battle between these two drivers, and they're really fighting as hard as possible for this position. Corsa, again, you can see he's getting that very wide entry, but he's going to catch Willify inside his braking zone, so that's hindered his progress a little bit. Willify just keeping his car in the right places, and now up towards the old hairpin. You can see Corsa trying to get a bit of a wider line, not able to find the room for it, but he's still going to have the speed going up the hill. Oh, they make contact, and unfortunately this time Willify is going to be the one that comes off worse, and he's spun off there. So Corsa now on ahead through McLean's. I definitely do not envy, and unfortunately that right behind them, I think that is Leach that has just yeeted it off track. We'll have to wait and see if someone drops behind it. I think that might have been a back marker, so apologies there to Leach. So Renier Leach in third, and then Stain right behind him. So they now go through the Pogo TSs. They're looking at any angle of attack they can get on Leach here, as the two drivers chase one another down. Stain with a very interesting number on his car. I wonder what that is inspired by. And I think Leach might be pulling a gap here. The two hairpins proving a little bit difficult. And I think that might be the room that Leach needs just to get his head clear and start focusing on his laps. Corsa with the 146 versus the 147 from Johnson. So he's now chasing him down. Half a second between these two drivers, and let's just say they're getting very creative with their lines all across the track. They're keeping control of the cars, which is good. So now through the old hairpin. And we'll see where that exit gets close. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have much of a speed advantage on Johnson. And we've got a minute left on the race, and then it's going to be a question of when the driver crosses. Unfortunately, Johnson losing it on the exit, and that's what happens when those rears step on the dirt, kind of pushing the limits just a little bit too far, and it's cost him dearly. Leach now promoted to second position, and Willify right behind him. I'm not exactly sure how. They're quite far apart, so I don't think they'll be fighting unless someone makes a mistake. Maurice van Wyk looking at the back of Stain. So Willem Stain having a bit of trouble with the track at the moment. So Van Wyk on the inside, they're side by side, heading up towards the Pogo TSs. Van Wyk looking to break on the inside. Unfortunately, not going to find the confidence for it. And Stain is going to remain out ahead of him. Now towards the Melbourne hairpin. I do hear some contact between a car and the wall behind them, but it doesn't look too bad. Van Wyk losing a bit of time on entry, and he's going to regain it on exit. But not close enough to Stain to really make a difference at the moment. So the leaders have crossed the line, and we are still going to have 2 laps of racing left. So we're waiting for Corsa to cross the line, and then we'll have another lap of racing after that. And Corsa is currently, I think, just through the old hairpin. So Van Wyk doesn't really have an answer for the pace that Stain's been having in this first sector of the circuit. And that might be why. Steyn keeping very close to his best time thus far, although he's lost a lot of time going up the hill. And that's going to compromise him a little bit for McLean's, but Van Wyk is far enough behind. I think Van Wyk also struggled with the exit on the old hairpin. And just grabbing a little bit of dirt there, just trying to get as wide as possible, but Van Wyk is going to keep control of that car for the rest of the race. René Leach, he's been very quiet this race thus far, but it's been some very consistent racing from him, and he's benefited from it. So he's snuck up all the way into second, avoiding all of the chaos, and that's going to bring it home for him. So close with heavily fought for first position. Leach sneaking it into second, behind them Willoughby, and then I think that might be one of the back markers that's going to continue with their lap. Gijsbert Attinagel coming home in fifth. And then Steyn and Van Wyk battling all the way to the end. Steyn, Van Wyk, and then that's probably Van der Westhuizen right behind them. I do apologize, I'm just quickly taking a few notes. So, your finishers are Hoos in first position, Leach taking second, Willefeet third, Johnson fourth, Attinagel fifth, Steyn sixth, Van Wyk seventh, Van der Westhuizen eighth, Matt Williams ninth, Gavi Goos in 10th, Stander 11th, and then Virga has to have a bit of a 10-pin bowling moment there at the exit of the pit lane. I'm going to quickly see if I can fetch some drivers, and then I will be back shortly.
Good race, gentlemen.
Maar
Good race, everybody.
Keen is
good
right,
race.
hè. Keen kan vinnig saam ons ry, dis nie 'n probleem nie.
GG
Maar-
easy.
Maar hy moenie so doos ry.
Ja,
Dit-
was
dis waar dit
Ja,
gaan.
hy moet oordentlik
Ja,
ry.
nee, hy
Presies,
hy
ja.
is vinnig. Hy kan maklik verbykom. Hy moet net
Cool.
reg.
Ja,
Ja.
hoekom ry deure ou? Ry om ons, nou fok hy deure ou heel elke keer.
I just want to
Shit,
say, somebody absolutely dive bombed me at one point. I don't know who it was.
Who's speaking?
It's Matt.
Matt.
Okay.
So unfortunately, there is a bit of a discussion between the drivers and the stewards at the moment. So I'm just going to jump on towards our Div 1 race and see where we can go from there. They're probably setting up for qualifying just as we speak. I just need to reconnect to the other server while we are waiting. So I will maybe catch up with the YouTube chat in the meantime. There's 3 minutes left of practice, so that's just going to be enough time for me to rejoin. So looking at the YouTube chat. Oh no. Oh no. I do massively apologize if there was a mic present with the driver's discussion. I thought that the scene didn't have it. Oh. That's on me. I do apologize, and I do apologize for the language that you guys hear there. Just in that situation, I do have to mention that I think the tensions were a little bit high, so I apologize for the language, but we will move onwards. We've got some exciting racing ahead of us. I should have managed the scenes a little bit better. I should have had the transition going, so yes. And I feel really bad about that. I do apologize. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I think we might have to remove that in post. But yeah, that is what happens when you race that closely. It gets very heated. And some people a little bit vocal. So, we are in the practice server. So let's go towards our live feed. Get this transitioned, get it going. I honestly don't know if this driver's name is spelled correctly, but we've got John Beton. I'm not sure if you need to pronounce that in Afrikaans, but it is so much funnier when you do. So Beton, definitely not with a piece of concrete in his car. He's sitting out in front with the 146.130. And while this is not qualifying, it is a nice fast time. So I do see some comments with "we need boxing gloves." It has been quite intense, and it's only going to get even more intense between these drivers with the times that much closer. And I see some people with some innuendos with their comments. I'm not going to read that out on stream. I've already done enough damage as is. So Matt Williams shouting, "Go boys!" Of course, he's had his fun racing. He's now looking towards watching some racing out here on track and just seeing how people get on. So while we are waiting for the practice to tick over, I'm going to reset a little bit. I'm going to send you to ads, and then we will be back with qualifying. So see you just in a moment. I'm going to have a bit of a drink of water. My throat is parched at the moment, so yes, we will see where we go from there. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the Div 1 race ready to get going. We're busy with qualifying, and we've got the Div 1 drivers out on track. So, looking at the current championship points, we've got Dennis Mitchell, then Melvin Goos, Pieter Grobler. So, keep an eye on those three drivers. Then Dylan Versaghi, Mornay Deploy with a interesting 5th position there. So, he's battling it out with James Crook. And then Tommy DeRay Moss, Peter Geldenhuis, Craig Wesley, Ian Upton, Herman Nieuwoud, Michael Rust, Barney van Rooyen, and Steven Sparks, who's unfortunately had a bit of a bad luck in the last few races, so he's going to try and see if he can improve on that. Then we've got Timo Smith, James Leach Jr., Alistair Barnard, Richard van Heerden, Sean Johnson, Rian van der Westhuizen, and then we've got Andre Hildebrand, Marius van Wyk, Sean Olivier. So those are the Div 2 drivers, and Donnie Stander. So this right here is going to change, so I'm not going to run through it again, but we have an interesting battle going on between Dennis Mitchell, Melvin Goos, and Peter Grobler, so keep an eye on them. So Dennis Mitchell racing for Sim Experience South Africa itself. Then Melvin Goos in SRAC, so we've seen a lot of support there for them. Cleopas is probably shouting for them again in the YouTube channel, so some massive support for them. And then we've got Jack Till racing for Peter Grobler. In terms of the weather, it is looking nice and cool with the 25 degrees Celsius for the air. The track at 35 degrees Celsius, a bit warmer than you would expect for British weather, but it is conducive for some nice, good racing, some extra grip for the tires as we set up for everything. So, we are currently looking at James Leach Sr. and he is looking to improve on his lap time. So the drivers have finished their out laps. They are busy with their first banker lap to get that time in for qualifying, and then they'll try and improve from there. And unfortunately, the timing tower does lag behind during qualifying, so we will only see time start piling in at around the 5-minute mark. For now, we can maybe jump on board and have a little bit of fun. So James Leach Sr. and ooh, nice little drift there through that corner right there. Through Coppice as he just keeps control of the car as best as he can. Now through the fog OTSs. And again with the oversteer. This car being very forgiving, and it kind of buffers you from errors so you can actually fix them mid-corner, but you do lose a bit of time doing that. Now up towards the end of the circuit, towards Goddard's, and this exit is so important to get right. You need that momentum for the straight as you head up towards Redgate. Now I do want to see how he utilizes the exit of the pit right there. The driver in front of him doing exactly that. You can see he's also running quite wide and getting that nice and solid entry into the corner. He does have a little bit of a challenger behind him. I think he might be holding someone up, but he is going to charge on ahead. Jumping on board with another driver, Dylan Versaghi, as he heads up towards Coppice, already finding 2/10 on his previous time, so he's already looking for that improvement. His best lap is a 146.348. I'm not exactly sure that if that was picked up during practice, but we will see where the timing board ends up after they complete their second laps. It's now towards the Melbourne hairpin, and it's very tricky having two hairpins like this. One of the drivers drifting off course and still maintaining his position. That's going to be Michael Rust, I think, judging by the number plate. He's going to keep out of the way. doesn't want to ruin Dylan's lap. Unfortunately, Dylan is a bit down on time. As he comes across the straight, nice clean exit, just drifting towards the outside. And there the times start tumbling in. So Dylan Versace 146, Sparks also with a 146. And I should probably stop reading which drivers are in the 146s because it's 146 all the way up to 8th position. And we've got Peter Grobler jumping ahead just as we are speaking. Steven Sparks also looking good on his Delta. Someone warming their tires in front of him. I've never seen that with the MX5s. So currently we've got Grobler, Versace, Sparks, Mitchell, Crook, Leach Jr., Goos, Franco, Gelnhuis, Van Rooyen, Upton, Rust, Deploy, Castellan, Murray, Van Heerden and Nieuwoud as the times start tumbling, and we've got John Baton just jumping into first with a 146.141. We almost have half of the field doing 146s now. It's going to be an extremely close race. Franco jumping up towards 146.701. Peter Grobler not really finding the time that he needs. Robert Franco now through the crane curves as he tries to find that extra bit of pace. Unfortunately, I think that previous lap might have drained his concentration. And he's now going to look at where he's making those mistakes and then reassess for the next lap. 2.5 minutes left of qualifying, and it's already an interesting board. Van Rooyen jumping into second position and securing a very comfortable grid slot for himself. James Crook now through the cranial curves up towards the old hairpin, and this is where that time can be found. So he's carried the speed in. Unfortunately, that exit is not going to do him good as he does a few pirouettes, and that is going to be his lap in the bin. Leach Jr. in the midst of traffic, and he's able to find that time as he goes up the hill. Now into McLean, one of the drivers doing a very interesting job of keeping out of the way for those on the fast lap. You can see Tommy Leary Moss right in front of Leach Jr. there. And James Leach Jr. finding the time now through Coppice. This is going to be very important. So he's found almost 3/10. He needs to maintain that. It can be a very good jump in positions for him if he's able to maintain the speed. Now the 4GO TS's, and he's even able to find some more time. Now the only thing that stands between himself and a good lap is the Melbourne hairpin and Goddard's, and it's going to be interesting with some of the drivers also getting a little bit, not in the way, but let's just say there's a few distractions on the course at the moment. So Leach now looking to get a very clean exit here through Goddard's. And he's slowed down on the exit a bit, but that's going to be 5/10. And we'll see where that jumps him, and that's all the way to second position. So I can imagine him being very happy with that. In the meantime, John Baton has gone even faster. He's now into the 146s with the 146, 146 flat basically. Steven Sparks still trying to find his groove. Dennis Mitchell uncharacteristically low, but this is not everyone's cup of tea. This is a very tricky track to drive, and Mitchell fancies a little bit a spot of rallycross as he takes a very different line from what you would normally take up the hill, maybe preparing for those instances where he might be caught off track. So the session has ended. John Baton and James Leach Jr. have their times on the board. Peter Grobler is not going to have an answer. Donnie van Rooyen also very close to his delta. He's going to find some time through the 4 OTSs, and now it's the 2 hairpins. Does he have the speed to find some time? He's going to need a bit more than a 10th. So we'll see how the exit for this corner goes. Unfortunately, not able to make it in terms of the delta. We'll see what happens for the last corner. He's close enough to challenge 3rd position, but he does need to get this done perfectly. Unfortunately, perfect is not going to be enough, and he's going to stay where he is. Steven Sparks, not really with an answer to what's happening on track. Dylan Versace, no improvement. Dennis Mitchell, also no improvement. James Crook, no improvement. Malmberg's not finding anything. And Moss is in the pits. Mornay Deploy is unfortunately not going to get another lap in. Or he is. Oh yeah, he was crossing the line after the flaggers. No. I don't think this will count. But he's still going to get a little bit of practice in. So it does seem like we have settled into our positions for the race. So out in front it's going to be John Baton, then James Leach Jr., followed by Peter Grolber, Donnie van Rooyen, Steven Sparks, Dylan Versace, Dennis Mitchell, Robert Franco, James Crook, Melvin Goos, and then Tommy Lurimas, Peter Galdenhuis, Steven Castellan, Ian Upton, Michael Rust, Mornay Deploy, Tian Marais, Richard van Heerde, James Leach Sr., Herman Nieuwoud. And then we have actually run out of space on the board, but we also have Eric Leitwanger, who is probably going to be joining us. So Mornay does seem to be finding his rhythm out on circuit at the moment. And he's just having a little bit of fun before the session gets started. They are going to have to come in after this lap though, because we do have a race to get underway. Out in front of Mornay is Tian Marais, also still getting to grips with the track. I think Mornay will be very happy with that lap, even though it's actually going to count. That was just before we changed over, so that's going to be Mornay Deployed jumping into 10th position. He's going to be very happy with that. And unfortunately, I think that might catch some other drivers off guard. We are going to go to an ad break. I will be seeing you shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the grid and ready to get going for the Div 1 Race 1. We've seen some very fast times during qualifying, but it is going to be a question of whether these drivers will be able to maintain the pace during the race itself. It's one thing to be fast in qualifying, it's a whole nother thing to be fast under pressure. So we'll see how that goes. I do see some support for the drivers in the YouTube chat, so it's nice to see that. Some people saying that it is proof that aliens exist. A ton of drivers very close together. 6 lights, and we are ready to get going. And we are off. All of the drivers getting a very good start. And we are going to settle into our positions. John Baton leading into the first turn. And then we've got Peter Krobler next to him. Side by side, so they are going to be adjusting for position. Krobler pulling out ahead slightly. And Baton taking the inside line as they go through the crane curves and down towards the old hairpin. Now Krobler on, Baton on the inside, and Krobler is going to dance on around in front of him. James Leach Jr. also coming up behind them, and the front 3 runners are settling into position. Behind them there's also a bunch of drivers. I know James Crook, Dylan Versace and Dennis Mitchell are all involved there. I can see the pack right behind them there. Front 3 runners all within half of a second of one another. And they set up towards the Fogarty S's. Now Baton keeping very close indeed to the back of Krobler. Krobler under massive amounts of pressure. He got the move done in the first lap, but he's going to have to defend for all that he's worth to keep that position. Baton just showing a bit of a nose, just making himself known, and now he's going to try and pull side by side out of the Melbourne hairpin and on towards Goddard's. He's not going to have the speed to pull ahead, and he's going to fall back behind Krobler. Now trying to get that great exit for the Wheatcroft straight as the cars come piling through. So many cars within a shot of one another. And things looking a bit calmer than in the previous div. Baton nearly locking up his tyres. And unfortunately, I think that might have been a netcode error. He's been shoved off track. And that's allowed Krobler and Leach Jr. to continue on through. So, unfortunately, some networking issues, and that's cost him dearly. Behind them, Steven Sparks trying to keep a whole bunch of drivers behind him. So, Sparks with Baton now rejoining behind him. And then Crook, Franco, and Moss all jousting for position. And into McLean's they go. Sparks getting a very nice exit. Masaki also challenging Dennis Mitchell, and Mitchell just showing that you don't need to qualify that well to get a good position in the race, as he snuck through all the chaos and managed to secure third. So now he needs to defend as hard as possible from this assault from Dylan Masaki. Through the Fogarty X's and on towards the Melbourne hairpin. You can see the front 4 runners all within the screen at the moment. Sparks with some good amounts of speed as you see him diving there behind Vasaki. Krobler and Leach very close together now. 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths between the drivers, but that is going to come down as they follow one another down the straight. You can see the 146s tumbling down as Leach does a 146 flat. Fastest lap of the race thus far. Not much happening yet, so that's going to change quite a bit through the run of this race. I just want to show you this situation right here. So this is James Crook keeping off a whole collection of cars behind them and having a brilliant battle with Tommy Ramos. Tommy Ramos just going through the cranial curves, just dancing around. And that is a very confident move to make right before the old hairpin. Normally you'd want to get your car settled But with the skill that these drivers have, they do have a bit of headroom to work with. And they charge on through. And unfortunately, probably running very wide. And that's going to ruin that portion of the race for him. So he's dropping back quite severely. So Sparks and Baton having a battle now, and Moss has dropped backwards again. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. I think he might have had a bit of a spin, or there might have been a bit of contact. That might have cost him heaps of time. Now, through Goddard's, and we've got quite a few drivers close together. You can see Leach Jr. just starting to open up that gap in first position, but Dennis Mitchell is doing all that he can to keep up and see if he can challenge for that position. John Baton now behind Sparks as they go through the Craner curves and up towards the old hairpin. Again, one of the trickiest portions of the track. You've got these undulations and then into this heavy braking zone, and if you've got the car's balance not settled at that particular point in time, it's going to cost you dearly. So Baton improving on his times, just keeping up nicely with Sparks. So Moss, Crook and Franco all in a bit of a jive here. Franco's right on the rear of Crook. Through Coppice and down the Starkley Straits. They're going to try and pull side by side, so Franco is looking for a passing opportunity. He's not going to find it there. Crook just tucks in front of him and goes hard on the brakes. Franco very aware of the situation and also responds to that and avoids contact between them. Moss is also starting to come into play here. And they're out in front. You can see Baton and Sparks swapping position. So now up towards Goddard's. And Moss, Crook and Franco very close together. That's going to be Moss charging on ahead with Franco. Sorry, with Crook just on his heels. Both drivers using that wider entry. I suspect they might have picked it up from iRacing. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that is a very, very common line for the iRacers to take. Moss trying to do all that he can to keep ahead of Crook. And that exit out of the old hairpin is going to help him tons. So you can see Moss opening up a massive gap on Crook. And Crook is now going to come under pressure from Franco behind him. And Franco is going to try and pull up alongside him for Coppice. Unfortunately not able to do so, but he is sticking a nose in. And we do have, I think that's Castellan, trying to dance around the outside there, looking for opportunity and finding it. So now Ogo TS's and Castellan and Franco keeping one another occupied while Crook opens up that gap a little bit more. So Dylan and Baton playing it out here for third position as we near the Goddard's hairpin. Some contact between the drivers, and Baton is going to fall in behind Fasaki yet again. Out in front, Mitchell has caught up with Leach Jr. a little bit, so we will be keeping an eye on the difference between those drivers. Steven Sparks yet again introducing himself to the front runners of the pack, as you can see him there close to 4th position. He's in 5th, but he is closing in on Baton as well. You can see him there in the background on the corner curves as these two gentlemen go through the old hairpin up the hill and charging towards McLean's. Mitchell is now looking to challenge Leach Jr. here, and that off track is going to count in his favor. So Leach keeping control of the car, but unfortunately having to run wide to do so. Now the Stockley straight, and you can see a little bit of a draft forming there for Mitchell, but he's not within striking distance yet. Leach running on the outside, trying to get a nice good run through these corners. And just trying to stay away from Mitchell as well as he can. Now into the Melbourne hairpin. Mitchell getting the car turned in nice and early, squaring off the corner a little bit as they go charging on ahead towards the last corner on the track. Unfortunately, a bit of an interesting situation on the brakes for Mitchell, and he's making it work. So within drafting distance of Leach Jr., but not close enough to make any kind of move. Donnington battling it out in 10th position. You can see him in amongst the cars there, trying to get that wide entry for the first corner for Redgate. That's Franco drifting stepping out the rear of the car, drifting a bit. And now they're going to be side by side through corner curves. So Franco and Van Rooyen pulling ahead a little bit, and now into the old hairpin. Just enough time to get the car settled, and they're slipping and sliding through the corners as they go up the hill. And Steven Sparks has pulled a sneaky, he snuck by Baton, and he's up into 3rd. I do suspect that Baton maybe lost a bit of momentum going up the hill towards McLean's. Now that's given the opportunity for Sparks. Dennis is right on the rear of James Leach Jr. with 0.2 seconds separating them when we looked a bit earlier. Now 0.4 seconds through the hairpin. And I suspect this might be the weak point for Mitchell. As you see, he's struggling to really bring that delta down through this sector. The wider entry, and that's going to facilitate him getting a bit earlier on the throttle. But Leach Jr. has this last sector of the track nailed. It's now into Redgate and up towards Hollywood they go. The gap is still opening up a little bit. Mitchell not able to answer the faster pace that Leach just pulled out of nowhere for this past half a lap. Through the old hairpin, up the hill and underneath Starkey's Bridge. So looking very good for both drivers, nice and consistent, and they're opening up the gap between themselves and the rest of the pack. So they're giving themselves some breathing room, and they're going to need that when they get to battling one another. Dylan Versace jamming it out in 12th position. He's got Murray, Rust, Castellan, Franco all in front of him. Through Coppice they go. So Versace just trying to see where he can find a bit of pace on Murray. They're very close together on the Stockley straight. And now he's going to try and attack into the braking zone on the inside. Is he going to be able to make it? And he does. Versace just pulling ahead of Murray. Very confident on those brakes and gets the move done. Mitchell is once again closing down that time between himself and Leach Jr. Now 5 tenths between them, and Mitchell has the better exit. But is it going to stay that way? Now dipping into the 145s. With quite a few drivers setting times in the 145 range. So 5.5 minutes left of racing. And it's going to be tough for all of these drivers. And it's very close all across the field. I'm just keeping an eye on all of the times, and it's looking nice and close. Unfortunately, it makes my job very difficult, but it is good to have your pick of the action. So Mitchell is still hunting down Leach Jr. Leach keeping it nice and consistent, doing a superb job. And that's going to be crucial to keep that consistency under pressure. So now into the S's, and this is where you can gain a lot of time if you are quite careful. And Mitchell just doesn't have an answer for the exit that Leach has out of there. So again, now through the hairpins, and we know Leach is strong through this sector of the track. Although there is a very wide exit for the hairpin. So Mitchell gaining a little bit of time on him. Donnie van Rooyen on the inside of Crook, and he's going to get the move done. But he still needs to charge on ahead, get that position secured. Into Goddard, so they go. So Crook going to look for the switchback, not going to find it. And he's going to tuck it behind and see if he can utilize that draft behind Van Rooyen. These cars are extremely low powered, so you need to keep the momentum going as well as you can. And sometimes that means utilizing the faster pace of one of your opponents. Up the hill towards McLean's, and Mitchell's has a bit of a run. He's going to look and see if he can carry some momentum on the outside of Leach Jr. Leach very restricted with his line, losing some speed, and he's going to tuck behind Mitchell as they head up towards Coppice. And a nice move there, nice opportunity, utilization of that opportunity from Dennis Mitchell. But Leach is going to keep on his rear. He does have a good amount of pace for this sector of the circuit. So let's see if the tables get turned on Mitchell as the pressure now mounts on his shoulders out in the lead of the race. So almost 9 laps done and 2.5 minutes left, so not much racing left. That's probably 3 laps for these drivers to complete. Robert Franco in the thick of things. Crook in front of him. And then they've got Van Rooyen to look at as well. Castellan a little bit further behind him. He's now setting up for Goddard. He's able to utilize a bit of a drop behind himself, and Crook just making it a little bit easier on him. So side by side for Redgate. Franco on the inside, and he's going to get chopped off a little bit. I don't think that was his corner to begin with, but he's kept it safe. He's stayed out of trouble, and now side by side through the craner curves, and this is going to be very tricky into the old hairpin. Ooh, and once again it gets very close to the back of the car, end of Crook's car, but making sure that he stays alive and he stays fighting. Baton and Sparks, one fairly grounded and one very energetic, and they are going to look at who's the better person or better driver, not the better person but better driver through the back portion of the circuit. 1 minute left of racing, and then we're going to wait for the leader to cross the line. Oh, and a bit of a collision between Mitchell and Leach. And that's going to bring Sparks and Baton into play there. So Leach was probably found himself at fault there and waited for Mitchell to rejoin the track. And now Sparks on the inside, and that's going to be the position taken from Leach, but his troubles are not yet over. Baton also on the inside as they come charging down the main straight. So Mitchell leading, then Sparks, and right behind him we've got Leach Jr. and Baton right after that. Baton going very wide there through Hollywood. And now down through the craning curves, and they are neck and neck with old hairpin. Sparks is stepping out the rear of the car. Oh, they come so close to making contact, and Leach is going to charge on ahead and get that inside line for McLean's. Now Baton is right on Sparks' rear, so they still have a lot to fight about. Setting up for Coppice side by side, a little bit of a bump, and Sparks is going to kind of aggressively go on through. He's going to run off the track a little bit, and Baton is going to go on ahead for second place. And a whole mix-up of positions here at the end of the race. So we're waiting for Mitchell to cross the line, and it's going to be one last lap of racing. Versaghi moving into 9th position. Castellan having to concede the position, but they're still going to swap around, and Castellan regains it. As we're now watching Baton going towards Goddard's. This is going to be crucial for the last lap. All the drivers need to keep it nice and consistent. So onto the main straight they go for the last lap of the first race. After this we will be having a reverse grid. Moss trying to pull alongside Van Rooyen. Van Rooyen stuck on the outside. And he's going to get the wider line, but Moss is going to be there, and he's not going to be able to turn in and utilize the momentum. So Moss is going to get that 5th position, and now it's going to be a fight up towards the end. Van Rooyen is definitely going to try and fight back for it. Through the old hairpin, this is very tricky. Moss just keeping that car nice and grounded. Van Rooyen losing time on the grass there. I know it's a Sunday afternoon, but the time for mowing a lawn is over. It's a bit dark for that right now. So Moss and Van Rooyen still neck and neck into Coppice. And I suspect Van Rooyen is going to look towards this last portion of the circuit. He's carrying huge amounts of speed through Coppice. Getting that draft from Moss, and now into the Fogarty S's. He's going to dart out last minute. Doesn't have the confidence for the brakes, and he's going to tuck in behind again. Moss getting a little bit of a breathing room, but doesn't have the exit they want. But Rooyen on the inside, he is going to come past. And Moss is going to really have to try and get a good exit here. So Van Rooyen just pulling ahead of him slightly. Is this going to be done and dusted? Only time will tell. Out in front, Mitchell, Baton, Sparks and Leach. Moss just sticking to the rear of Van Rooyen. Doesn't have the exit speed to challenge him. And that's going to be 5th position sorted there and then. So that's a interesting and a very energetic finish to the first race. And we will be swapping around for the second race. I just need to note some of the drivers here. So your finishers are Dennis Mitchell, John Baton, Steven Sparks, Leach Jr., Van Rooyen, Moss, Crook, Franco in 8th, Versaghi 9th, Castellan 10th, Rust, Murray, Goos. 13th position is Melvin Goos. And then 14th, Haldenhuis, Upton, Deploy, Van Heerden, Nivote and then Leach Senior bringing out the rear. And then Peter Krobler in 20th position. Sean Weber also unfortunately not finishing, so those are your finishes. I'm going to send you guys to a quick ad break while these guys are busy with their cooldown laps, and then I'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are set up for the second race. We still have fast drivers out in front, even though the grid has been reversed. And it's going to be intense. So I see some people chatting on the YouTube channel. Journey Lee Moss saying, wow, what a nail-biting race. And it was nail-biting indeed. It's going to be a tall task for these drivers to repeat it again, but they are going to have to do that, and all 6 lights are up and we are racing. It's a nice clean start for all the drivers, and we are going to set up towards the first turn. First in line, Peter Krobler, then James Leach Senior, as we head towards through Redgate. Krobler leading from the area behind him, Leach Senior, then Upton, Marie, Gelnhuis, Rust, Gauss. Krobler getting an extremely good start towards for his race. But Van Heeren and Leach are battling it out for second position. Very close indeed. Going through the old hairpin and up the hill. Van Heeren still has the speed advantage. But Leach is looking for an opportunity now towards McLean's. And is he going to dot? That's a very defensive line from Van Heeren. So no opportunity for Leach Senior to dart towards one of the sides. As they go piling through. Now Koppers. Nice clean line there for Van Heeren. And Leach just following behind him. Tian Marais also in on the action. As they go through the Starkley Straight into the S's. It's so difficult with this many cars together. He gets so close to getting spun around there by Upton. As the cars are just neck and neck. Upton side by side with Rust and Gelderhuis. 4 wide into the hairpin. And yes, you are going to get spun when you involve yourself in a situation like that. But all of the drivers very brave. And hunting for those positions. Probably still very comfortable out in front. Then Van Heeren, Leach, Marais, Goos, Upton, Castellan, Rust, Crook, Franco, Nevoot, and Leach Jr. And the rest are... Oh, and someone diving into the pits right there. Unfortunately, finding the pit wall. They've not made it to their pit box. So I think that might be Gelderhuis. Unfortunately, he's had a disconnection there. Leach Senior looking at the rear of Marais. He's looking for an opportunity here. He is hungry. Now, through the cranial curves, into the old hairpin. Who's going to get the better exit? And that does seem to be Leach Senior. He's going to have to try and utilize it, though he's stuck behind Marais at the moment. So he's going to try and set himself up for the outside of McLean's. Next to him, he's got Goos just slipping on by. Not getting a much better start than his previous race. And he's going to try and utilize his pace to carry on ahead. Leach getting caught out a little bit. I think he's going to try and collect himself from there. Post now pressuring Marais into the Volvo TS's. Is he going to try and undo him on the brakes? And he's going to decide to just see what his opponent has in store for him. So no shenanigans yet. Now looking towards the inside, Goos just attacking through the hairpin. And he's going to comfortably claim the position. But Marais is going to try and cut back. And Tian Marais gets the better exit. This fight is going to continue into Goddard's. Now with Goos on the inside, again running a very restricted line. Tian trying to get that momentum, trying to get that switchback. And we'll see where this gets them. Everyone just piling on through. Another car diving into the pits. And this time finding their pit box. So Goos staying ahead of Marais on the straight. Keeping a good hold of that position. I think that's Castellan that's gone into the pits. Donnington running with a 1:46.134 for the fastest lap. As we continue on through. 2 laps down and it's already been jam-packed with action. Rust looking at the rear of Upton. Up the hill they go. Almost side by side. He's going to try and set himself up for the inside of McLean's. Is he going to be able to make it though? Both drivers side by side and they make contact. Rust able to save it. I don't know how he's done that. But he's going to live to fight another day. Some of the drivers piling on through, but that is a good save in regards to keeping that position. Rust now under pressure from Franco. And someone is taking a very adventurous route, trying to keep the car in control. I think that might have been Mitchell that had to take some evasive maneuvers. John Baton now looking at the back of Rust, and he's going to have the pace out of the S's. And they set up side by side into the hairpin. Baton not keeping the momentum, and Michael Rust is going to get some speed through there. On the inside for Michael, and unfortunately both himself, sorry, Baton and Michael getting spun around. A whole jumble of positions. And things are getting very heated here in the middle of the pack. Russ now back in 7th. Franco behind him, Upton, and then Mitchell. And you do feel for Mitchell. He's been trying to get past this chaos. But he seems to be caught up in it every single time. Michael trying to keep Franco at bay. And they go up the hill. Who's going to have the better exit? Who's going to keep the speed? It does seem like Franco has some pace in hand. He's going to try and get that inside line for McLean's, but it's going to have to be done on the brakes. And wisely, he decides against jumping in that closing gap. Upton swapping positions with Mitchell. So Mitchell starting to charge on through. Goos attacking Van Heeren. Getting very close there through the S's. Now on towards the hairpin. Krobler absolutely running away with the race. 3 laps in and he's already opened up a 7.5 second gaps between himself and second. And this battle between second and third is going to help him even more. So into Goddard's, and Goos is going to do everything that he can to get a nice good exit through here. But Marais is starting to catch up. He's going to have to think about defending at some point if he's not going to clear Van Heerden. And now Redgate, and then on towards Hollywood. Through these undulations, it's very difficult to see the apexes of the corners. Now into the braking zone. Just countering that steering, getting the car turned in with speed. And they go up the hill. Both drivers getting a very good exit. And now through McLean. Post getting into towards the apex, getting that speed through. And he's hoping to be able to repeat that for Koppes. And here looking a little bit slower, but it's not enough to really bring the end of the straight into or as an option for an overtake. So they are going to continue their battle, and it's going to come down to who's going to blink first, who's going to make a mistake and fall back in terms of the times. Van Rooyen and Ian Upton also battling it out. Van Rooyen trying to look for a way past, and he's going to get stuck behind him at the hairpin. And he's also got Tommy Leary Moss behind him to contend with. So all of the drivers really setting themselves up for a good race. There in front we can see, I think that might be Mitchell having a little bit of a scrap. So running down the straight, Mitchell setting himself up on the outside, not really getting the jump. And he attacks on the inside of Franco. Franco leaves a little bit too much room, and that's all that Mitchell needs. Slightly opportunistic, but so well executed. Through the crater curves, and Michael Rust is going to follow Mitchell into the old hairpin. And Michael running so close to Mitchell. Van Heeren now under massive amounts of pressure from Goos. The gap down to 1/10. And Goos is still keeping behind him. So Goos is definitely planning on getting the better exit here out of Koppes. Now he's going to try and pull alongside him. Van Heeren running very defensively on the inside, leaving it up to the latest. Goos can't jump out to get past under braking. And that's cost Goos dearly. Goos now getting the better exit, gets the momentum towards the inside of the hairpin. And Van Heeren is going to have to try and find an answer for that. Van Heeren squares off the corner, but Post is already off into the distance. Donny Verhoeven in the thick of things, with Tommy Derry Moss and Ian Upton battling it out behind him. So Moss looking for the outside line. He's going to probably square off the corner a little bit. And he gets held up on the apex. So Upton defending nicely there. Just positioning his car in the best way possible. Moss now looking to assume the outside line. But he has not pulled alongside Upton yet. So side by side through the red gate into Hollywood. They're still going to be side by side. Contact is made. Unfortunately, that's going to be Moss off the track. Upton going forwards. That is so sad to see that battle come to an end like that. Baton running very wide, really keeping his car under control, and Versaki getting past. Thierry Marais is caught up with Van Heeren, is now looking for this third position. He's trying to pull alongside on the straight and up towards the S's, but he's not getting out of position for it. Swaps back into the inside, late on the brakes, and he's not going to be late enough. But Heeren is still going to maintain that position. Marais losing a lot of speed. Leach Jr. charging on ahead into fourth. Things are falling apart for Marais here at the back end of the circuit. He did not plan it that way. Now tries to square off that hairpin, get a nice and solid exit, but it is going to be a little bit too late for him to do anything about it. Upton catching up with Van der Rooyen here. Massive battles in the middle of the pack as they go through Goddard onto the main straight. No real shenanigans. You can clearly see the racing line from the line of cars just running down that straight. And into Redgate. Upton still keeping very close to Van Rooyen. Battle here between Leach and Van Heeren for fourth position. Neck and neck, and Leach does seem to have a very good exit. So they're going to pull alongside one another for McLean's. On the inside with Leach. And they're going to have to avoid contact there. Leach running very deep. And you can see Marais also trying to come in on the mix. With Van Heeren losing out slightly. Van Heeren on the inside of Koppers. He's going to get the momentum to drive through. Sorry, not Van Heeren, but Marais on the inside. Now towards the S's. Van Heeren, learning from his past mistake, knows he doesn't have the confidence on the brakes yet, and he's going to look to attack on a different part of the circuit. So setting up for the hairpin. Not really finding the pace that he would want. And he's going to try and recover from that. Behind them, Van Rooyen and Rust battling out. Van Rooyen diving towards the inside. That's a very aggressive move. And he's going to make it work. So Van Rooyen with a little sneaky one at the end of the lap. And I think that caught Rust way off guard. And now they're going to settle into their positions and try and make sense of what just happened. The only person I can see later on the brakes than that is going to be Valtteri Bottas, and he's not racing with us. So that was very impressive indeed. Looking a bit further back, I've got Mornay deploy with some speed up the hill. Looking at the back of Baton. Baton recovering from some earlier incidents in the race. And now fighting here. In front of them, Upton and Versaki battling out through Coppice. And up, it's just so much going on between these 4 cars right here. So they go down the straight towards the S's. All of them keeping it nice and tidy. So no shenanigans just yet, but we see Baton with some massive speed. So he's going to try and set himself up for the hairpin on the inside. Contact between the cars. And that's going to be up to the Baton again, rubbing against one another. So Baton slightly bullying his way into position. Mornay is saying thank you very much. He's going to make use of that opportunity, but doesn't get it finalized just yet. Gets shoved off track. And he's going to have to settle into position. He needs to be careful though. Castellan is charging up ahead behind them. Donnington running with a 1:45.389 for the fastest lap. 3 minutes left, 3.5 minutes left of racing. And it's been exciting indeed. Probably running away with the race out in front. 8-second gap between himself and Close. And then Leach Jr. 3rd position. Mitchell is still trying to get in on the action. As he goes up the hill out of the old hairpin, he has a bit of speed on Van Heeren in front of him. But he's not going to find room to make it work. Putting the nose on the inside, not seeing an opportunity. But that's a huge amount of pressure that he's putting on Van Heeren's shoulders. Van Heeren's showing that he is a bit more solid on this track. So Mitchell is going to have to make his own magic here. He's not going to get a freebie from Van Heeren. And Franco is charging up behind them. So Mitchell has to make a move somewhere now. Grobler still just charging out ahead in front of the entire pack. You can see him rounding the final hairpin just as we are in the second hairpin with the rest of the cars. I think that is him. Mitchell now on the last hairpin and catching that draft behind Van Heeren. So not much happening down the straight. Both of them utilizing that pit exit for the wider entrance. And things looking nice and clean. Franco and Van Rooyen having a bit of a scuff as they get held up with Mitchell and Van Rooyen in front of them. Sorry, held up with Mitchell in front of them. Mitchell now very, very close here through the old hairpin. And I think that... Oh, and Van Rooyen getting the speed up the hill. They're going to go 3 wide through McLean, and unfortunately, that's going to be Van Heeren getting the short draw between those 3 cars there. Very dangerous to go up that portion of the track 3 wide. Mitchell now pressuring from Van Rooyen. And I did not expect it to be this exciting on this track. Of course, I think that might be a bit too much excitement for some of the drivers, but for us as spectators, this has been quite the spectacle. Kastler now catching up with Van Heeren, so Van Heeren has dropped back significantly after that incident. Kastler on the inside for the hairpin. And getting the drive out of there. So Van Heeren clearly shook. I think he might have some damage to his suspension after that little bit of a shunt. Versace and Rust now heading down the main straight. The time for racing is up. We're going to have to wait for Grobler to cross the line. And then we'll have 1 more lap of racing. So 2 more laps for Versace to get the work done on Rust. And he's putting in everything that he can into the old hairpin. Versace taking a bit of a shallower line. I don't think he's carried as much speed as he would like. still positive on his delta, so putting in a fast time. Now up towards McLean's. Putting a nose on the inside, but just to get Rust under pressure, and that's helped him quite a bit. So Rust running off the track to keep control of his car. And I think Baton might also be looking at Rust right about now. So Rust taking the very defensive line, but Baton is just going to drive around him and charge on ahead. Franco and Mitchell very close together into the last hairpin, but not much changing between them as of yet. Out in front, Melvin Gous now crossing the line, and Peter Krobler already at the first corner. So final lap of the race. And this man right here only has himself as his opponent. So he needs to keep it consistent if he wants to win this race, but he's been doing just that for the entirety of the race. So I think he can probably kick back a little bit, ensure that he gets the turns done. He's not that fully on the throttle yet. So he's just trying to preserve his position throughout this lap. Melvin Gous doing exactly the same. Going up the hill. Not much happening around. Richard van Heeren and Castellan still battling it out though. Right up to the very end. Through the old hairpin. And a bit of a speed advantage for Castellan, but not really able to pull up alongside. A little bit of weaving there from Van Heeren, but you could argue that was just trying to keep the racing line. So just using that grey line right there and making sure that everything goes in his favor. So down the main straight. We've got Krobler rounding the last corner. And Melbourne now, unfortunately, has Leach very close behind him. So if there's a mistake right here, this could cost him dearly. Krobler coming across the line for first position. And then I would assume Gous also as well. And then Leach Jr. Back to the Castellan battle. Richard Van Heeren and Castellan only have one corner left. On the inside, Castellan trying to get that drive through, and it is going to be a drag race up to the very end. Tommy Moss, oh, that is such a horrible place to lose it. Van Heeren is going to maintain position. Castellan making that last ditch effort, trying to get past. I'm so glad we caught that. So your winners are Peter Krobler with a very solid victory, and then we've got Gous and Leach Jr. bringing it home for the Leach team. So well done to all of those drivers. Melvin Gous deciding he wants to get a rally crossing next. Just having a bit of fun in the grass, and I'm going to mute my mic and see if I can find some drivers for you. So I will be back as soon as possible. Okay, I'm back, everyone, and we have some people in the studio with us. So first up, I'm just going to have a quick chat with Dennis Mitchell. So congratulations on the win for the first race, Mitchell. And I just want to ask, how was that from your perspective? We had quite a few battles on track, and it was very close out in front. How was that race for you in terms of stress and yeah, just overall, how was it for you?
It was a good race. I had bad qualifying, got through the pack nicely, and then I was settling down, expecting to have Peter Grobauer just pull away, and then he made a mistake, touched the grass, and that was it. These cars are so sensitive to grass when you're at full load, and unfortunately that stole his win from him. But then James and I had a good battle to the end until eventually he made a mistake. I was very fortunate again today.
Yeah, I think consistency might have been the name of the game today on this track. And as you say, if you you were trying, like drivers were really trying to push the limits, getting the cars as close to the edges of the circuit as possible. But quite a few of them found the grass with their rear wheels, and they just pushed them off the line. So well done on keeping that consistency going throughout the race. And then I just want to ask, do you have any shout outs from your side?
Oh, I guess everyone that always supports me, family, friends, and everyone that makes this possible. So all the guys that join the races and all the guys that make the production possible. Thank you all.
It's always a big pleasure, and thank you for everyone that's involved with this. Next up, we've got Peter Grobler with us. So, Peter, just a huge congrats for that second race. You kind of just managed to get ahead of the pack at the start of the race. There was a little bit of opposition at the start, and then you just pulled out ahead and kept that consistency going and opened up a massive gap. How was that from your perspective, and what do you think was your secret to your success?
Ja, dankie. Ek dink net ek het die spoed gehad. Die eerste race het ek bietjie moeilikheid gehad. Dit gaan nie altyd oor pressure nie, but sometimes it's the computer. If there's too many people on the server, it tends to let you miss your markers because it lags a bit. But in the second race, I knew I had to pull a gap to keep it smooth and keep the cars behind me, so I can't get the lag that they generate for me. So I was just trying to be consistent and then just to keep the gap. That's all. But it was very nice. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, you looked like you were enjoying yourself quite a lot there out in front. And yeah, that is the challenges of working with such an old simulator. I mean, we wouldn't tell by looking at it, but the simulator is already 10 years old, and it's still doing quite well. And the fact that we can just have so much fun with it. From your side, Peter, any shout outs that you want to mention?
Yeah, I think I would just want to thank Dennis and yourself, and as well as I think it's Deploy for bringing us the series. I think everybody enjoys it because of the lock setup. It's much more closer than other racing. And again, all the production is very professional. And then my teammates in SRAC, thank you very much for supporting us, and thanks for everybody that joined in. We see you next time.
Yeah, the SRAC guys do have quite the support on the YouTube channel. I just also want to kind of chime in on that and say thank you so much to Mornay Deploy. He's been putting in a lot of effort in quite a few series. I mean, I just show up and talk a bunch of nonsense. He actually has to do the video work, so he's been doing quite a lot of time. And it's his brand, the Skinny Media, that you've been seeing in the advertisements through in between races. And then we've got one last person with us here, so Melvin Goos. That was quite a challenging race there at the start, I think. And then you had a bit of a rough time in the first race. What was your success kind of recovering from that first race and then just getting your head down and getting the job done for the second race?
I think the guys had a quite bit of getting together. The track is not easy and the car would let go at the weirdest of times when you least expect it. And I think that might have been the downfall of some. Also, there was a bit of contact here and there, and because you're on the limit, it's just going to take you out. And then on the second race, I was fortunate enough to have a good start, and I was able to miss all the mishaps. And yeah, I started working my way towards the front, and had one lucky dice with Rian. And then once I got past him, I knew Peter wasn't. Never going to catch him. But I just tried to maintain the gap with Leach coming in quick, because he was definitely quicker than me. Didn't have too many practice laps this week, and so yeah, I got into this thing blind.
No, you did very well for all of that considered. So yeah, very solid race. Actually, I just noticed a Namibian flag next to your name. Are you actually from Namibia?
Yeah, all the way.
That's quite nice seeing some of our Namibian friends participating with us. And yeah, any shout outs from your side?
Well, we'll get all the guys from SRIC. I mean, we started the team a short while ago, and these guys are just rooting every race that we do, and also participating with you guys and all over. And then to you guys hosting these events for us. Thanks a lot. It's really so much fun just to get up on a Sunday night and have some good close racing.
Yeah, it's been quite close indeed. And then yeah, thank you so much for all of you for jumping in for the interviews. From my side, I just want to thank everyone in the YouTube channel. It's been quite busy there. I've not been able to keep up that well, so sorry if I missed some of your messages. But yeah, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching. It's always fun for the drivers when they race and they know people are supporting them, people are watching. And it's always nice as a commentator as well to not just be talking to yourself. So next up, I just need to get my screens up on screen. We are going to Laguna Seca. It is the home of the corkscrew. And if you thought this track was difficult, boy, do you have something in store for you next time. So join us next time for the Laguna Seca race. If you want to get involved in the Discord server, just look in the description. We should have a working link in there. If that's not working, leave a comment, and then we should get back to you. Just make sure that you get involved with the community. There's lots of fun to be had with these races, lots of close racing. If you're into open wheeler cockpit racing, there's an F3 series that we've got going. We've got our F1 Saturdays. I actually still need to go watch the F1 race, so I am probably going to sign off as soon as possible. And then until next time, see you around and hope you have a good one. Thank you for watching and hope you have a lovely evening and a good week ahead.